You're sitting down to eat. You grab a glass of water. But have you ever had that little voice in your head ask, wait, should I be doing this? It sounds kind of wild, right? But this whole water with meals thing is a huge debate that's been around forever. Today, we're going to dig into the science and finally get some answers.
So yeah, let's just cut to the chase. Is drinking water with your food a good thing, or are we all accidentally messing up our digestion? There's a lot of noise out there, so we're just going to focus on what the real research says.
Okay, so to really get this, you got to see it as a bit of a showdown. In one corner, you've got this ancient wisdom. And in the other corner, a habit that pretty much all of us do without even thinking about it. So check this out. On one side, you've got these really old warnings from people like Avicenna, a famous physician from way back when, who is convinced that water totally weakens your digestive system. But then, just think about your own life, right? A glass of water with lunch or dinner is just normal. So what's the deal? Is it ancient wisdom we should be listening to, or is it just a totally harmless habit?
And that brings us to the biggest claim of all, the real heart of the argument, that water basically dilutes your super strong stomach acid, and that messes up digestion. It kind of makes sense on the surface, doesn't it? But let's put it to the test and see what the science tells us.
Okay, quick science lesson, I promise it's painless. When scientists talk about stomach acid, they use a term called gastric pH. All you need to know is it's a scale, and the lower the number, the more acidic it is. And you really, really want that low acidic pH to just obliterate the food you eat.
All right, so what actually happens in your stomach when you chug that glass of water? Well, a study from 2008 gives us a super clear picture. And yep, it turns out water does raise your stomach's pH, which means it gets less acidic. But here's the crazy part. It happens fast, like really fast. For most people, we're talking within 1 minute, instantly.
And just to show you how quick that is, get a load of this. Water actually changes your stomach's pH faster than a typical antacid. That's wild. It's a really powerful immediate effect. But, and this is super important, that is not the end of the story. Not even close.
Because here comes the plot twist. Yeah, the change is super fast, but it's also incredibly temporary. That same study, it found that in about 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, your stomach's pH snaps right back to its super acidic, food-destroying normal. Your body is just an amazing self-correcting machine.
Okay, so it looks like regular water is in the clear. But what about that other thing you always hear? The warning against drinking ice-cold water with your food. Does temperature actually make a difference?
Right? This is a big one. The idea that ice-cold water is this major dietary sin because it, shocks your digestive system. So is there anything to it, or is it just another myth?
Well, for the vast majority of us, the answer is no, it's totally fine. But science does show that for a small group of people, it can be a real trigger. For example, if you're someone who gets migraines, a 2001 study found cold water can actually set one off. And there's another condition called achalasia that makes swallowing difficult. And a 2012 study showed cold water can make that worse too.
And what's really interesting is that it's not just about the water. The research is pretty clear that the temperature of your whole meal can affect how fast your stomach processes everything. Hotter meals tend to speed things up. So yeah, temperature does play a role. But that whole idea that a glass of cold water is going to freeze your digestion in its tracks, that's just not how it works.
So where are we at? We've kind of busted the myths about stomach acid, and we've put the whole temperature thing into perspective. So what's the final word? Let's turn to one of the most trusted sources out there for the official verdict.
And boom, here it is. Super clear, super direct, right from the Mayo Clinic. Drinking water with meals doesn't cause any problems with digestion. In fact, it's actually good for it. How about that? That just flips that ancient wisdom right on its head. So you're probably asking, okay, but how does it help? Well, the Mayo Clinic lays it out. Water is crucial for helping to break down your food, which means your body can actually soak up all those good nutrients. Plus, it helps, soften things up and prevent constipation. So far from being a bad guy, water is actually a digestive superhero. All right, so what's the best way to do this? The advice here is super simple and totally practical. Number 1, just listen to your body. If you're thirsty, drink. Number 2, try to sip, don't gulp. Chugging a bunch of water at once is what can make you feel all bloated. And finally, a pretty good rule of thumb is to aim for about 250 milliliters. That's basically a tall glass with your meal.
So there you have it. You know the science. That age-old warning is officially busted. For most of us, water with meals isn't just safe, it's actually helpful. So that leaves one last question. What's the best drink to have with your next meal? The choice now is all yours.